Hello, 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 everyone. Hello. Thank you for joining me this evening. My name is Alexis Nelson, and this is the Exceptional Support Together podcast called Guiding Lights. And just for those who are new to the show, what we endeavor to do is create awareness for exceptional communities and all communities. We bring people on to share their journeys for healing, for encouragement, and for resources. And so we are so excited to bring exceptional families on so we can just create awareness for those who may not know, who's not familiar with the journey. We want everyone to be aware of exceptional communities. Also, if you're out there and you're watching and you have an exceptional story to share with us, a journey, please make sure you reach out to me at info@bestsupport.org, or you can go to the website at bestsupport.org if you would like to be a part of this show. So, before we get started, I want you to be a guiding light and like and share because we want to make sure everybody hears tonight's show. I'm very excited that we have a exceptional mom on today from an exceptional family who's going to share with us her journey. I have some questions for her, but before we get started, I would like for her to introduce herself to you all.
Hello, hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Courtney Ogletree, and I am the mother to Samuel Nelson Jr. and Kale Ogletree, my two boys. I am a part of a wonderful family, the Nelson family. So I want to give a shout out to everyone in the family, Alexis and everyone. Our family is a blended family, and we are full of fun, including our journey with our youngest son, Samuel, um, dad, Samuel Nelson Sr., and mom, Courtney. Um, we have a full life with all three of our children. We have Raina and Kale and little Samuel. Our life is full with all three of our children, but our journey with Samuel is one that would be considered an exceptional journey, and one that is um, full of challenges at times, but also full of such a wonderful, bright light in a at times dim world, to think of it like that. And so just to kind of give an overview, Samuel was born in September of 2017, a full term with no complications. No, my pregnancy was one with no complications. Born full term with no issues, and everything was fine. Checked, everything was checked off the list, and we were out of the hospital and home with our family. It wasn't till about 5.5 months after Samuel was born that we started to notice that we were having some issues, and nothing serious, just some sinus issues, just some, little issues, things like that young children face. Went into his pediatrician at that time was on maternity leave, so went in to see one of her partners, and he was diagnosed with just an upper respiratory infection. Still not alerted. Still not overly concerned. It wasn't until we followed up about 2 weeks later that at that time the pediatrician, along with some of the other individuals he had been talking to, said, well, we're a little off with Samuel in his development towards his milestones at this point in time in his growth and development. We would like to give you a referral to First Steps, and we would also like to give you a referral in conjunction with that to neurology, just as a consultation, and just to make sure that we cover all of our bases. But don't be alarmed, don't be worried. We don't think that it's anything serious. It's just protocol. Still, we weren't concerned. and they, they didn't really act like we should have been concerned. It was just kind of checking off bases. So we didn't have a sense of urgency at that time. And we had to wait about 6 weeks to see the neurologist. And in that 6 week period, Samuel, he went from, um, he just began to have a decline, and he quit moving, and we started to notice some other changes occurring. And so by the time, Samuel was about 7 months old, we were in for our consultation and with neurology, and they were pretty on a red alert. Like they were pretty confident that Samuel was dealing with a rare disease called spinal muscular atrophy, which we at that time had no idea what that was or what that meant, but that he would need to have a blood test immediately and see his diagnosis, and then move rather quickly, because it's a very devastating neuromuscular rare disease.
And that's
So
what I
about
was going to ask you. If for those who are listening out
yes,
there who's not familiar with spinal muscular, what he has, can you give um, just a brief overview of what that is to share with
yes,
them?
yes. So spinal muscular atrophy is a neuromuscular rare disease that occurs when the SMN1 gene is missing from the body. Everybody is born, well, everybody who doesn't have SMA is born with an SMN1 gene and an SMN2 gene. The 2 gene is a backup gene to the 1 gene. And everybody is born with that unless you have this disease. Um, if you have spinal muscular atrophy, then you're missing the SMN1 gene, but you still have the backup, which is the 2. But the issue with the backup gene, SMN2, is it is a weaker version of the original SMN1 gene. So even though you have the 2 gene, what ends up happening is without the 1 gene, your nerves, your motor neurons that are all throughout your body, that actually go throughout your body and into your muscles, those motor neurons start to die without the SMN1 gene. And when a motor neuron dies, that's what causes our muscles and our body to atrophy. Okay? So since Samuel and every other individual who has SMA does not have the SMN1 gene, their muscles, from even sometimes in the womb through birth, just continue to atrophy and weaken, and pretty much just they go away. Muscle mass goes away in the body. And so what we discovered is that even though Samuel at birth seemed to, move and lift his arms and do various things, over time, those movements they just went away. And then he went from lifting his arms and rolling and shifting weight and doing all that to not moving at all. And when I would pick him up, his neck would drop back. Or when I would go to pick him up from the bathtub, his body would be limp. His muscles just quit working because of that missing gene. And over time, the motor neurons started to die. And in this disease, we in this community that we're in the SMA community, our saying is time is motor neurons, because once a motor neuron is gone, it dies. They cannot be regenerated. So time is of the essence, and at that time, Samuel was diagnosed in May of 2018. Spinal muscular atrophy was not listed on the newborn screening panel for the state of Kentucky, and actually it wasn't listed on any newborn screening panel because before December of 2016, there was no way to treat this disease. It was the leading cause of death in infants to children 2 years of age before any treatment was available. Um, so in December of 2016, this is a something that happened in the midst of all of our trauma of a diagnosis. December of 2016, before Samuel was even born, the first ever medication was FDA approved to treat this disease. So after years and years and years of research and families pushing for something to be done because so many children were passing away, and a lot of times they didn't know why. A lot of times, babies were born in respiratory distress or crib death, stillborn or crib death. SIDS was very prominent. They didn't know why some of these children were passing away the way they were. Now looking back in retrospect, it was most likely something of this sort that was causing issues, but they would have never known because they weren't screening for it. But we were diagnosed in May. He's talking to his video. We were diagnosed in May of 2018, and the medication was started immediately, which was, we were very thankful that a medication was available to treat Samuel. But we also knew that our battle was going to be uphill because he had faced decline from birth until he was 7 months of age due to, a late diagnosis of this disease. So
now
it was
that
very...
Courtney, I want to interject right there because you're telling me, okay, so now we're going down your journey, and I want to know when it comes to family dynamics. Okay, you got the diagnoses. You're learning as you go as well, educating yourself. But how has SMA impacted the dynamics within your family, and how do you navigate and provide support to each other? Because
Yes.
I tell people on this journey, whether it's SMA, whether it's Down syndrome, whatever your journey is, that support
Yes.
is a necessity. So
Most definitely.
share with the listeners, how did you navigate this and what was the family impact?
Okay. Well, in the beginning, we faced a lot of shock, and it was a huge trauma situation for everyone because we were very caught off guard about the whole thing. I was working at the time. I was a management level position in a career that I had worked for over 15 years in healthcare and marketing. Um, of course, Sam, dad, working full time. When Samuel was diagnosed, he immediately was admitted into the hospital. We weren't allowed. We're admitting him right now. We have things we have to do. This is immediate. And I, at that time, I had no family medical leave available. I had no maternity leave available because I used it for my I used my time off from my job for my maternity leave, and I had just gone back to work, at the end of December, and then Samuel was diagnosed the beginning of May. So I wasn't able to accrue more time in my job to be able to take time off with Samuel being in the hospital. So without question, at that exact moment, sitting in the hospital, Sam and I had to make serious, humongous decisions that were going to affect our family as a whole. But it was necessary to be able to make sure that Samuel was in the best position for him to be able to receive the care he needed to receive. And so at that time, I had to, put my own professional career desires to the side, and I had to leave my occupation and my career to make sure that I could be with Samuel and take care of him while he was in the hospital as a 7-month-old baby. And that was really hard. That was something that happened so quickly, and we couldn't even we couldn't take a long time to think about it. It was like, this is what we have to do. Things were moving so fast. It was like, I kind of described it, at the time. I now look back on the journaling that I did while we were in the hospital. That hospital stay, we were there 14 days, or maybe slightly more. I look back on that time and I look at the journaling that I did and some things that I did while I was there, and our conversations that we had in the midst of all of the medical personnel and nurses and laboratory people and respiratory people coming in and out the room all throughout the night and day. We didn't think twice about it. We knew what we needed to do as a family to make sure that Samuel was being cared for in the best way, and that he had support that he needed from the both of us, while we were still able to try to keep our family, where we needed to be at moving forward, and taking care of what we needed to take care of on that home front. And of course, with family, with both sets of grandparents being ever so present, and there, whatever we need to do to help and support. We had a lot of both uh, sets of colleagues from both sides, pitching in and saying, what can we do? How can we help? Because it was like I described it. It was like we were on the side of, I know that this may sound crazy, but it really felt like this at the time. It was like we were on the side of a cliff, holding on for dear life on the side of a cliff during a hurricane or a monsoon. And it just kept coming in waves. And the storm was throwing us against the cliff, and we were holding on, and we were holding on. We know we can make it. God is so good. God is so good. We knew that we were being covered in prayer. We had so many people lifting Samuel up in prayer and our family up in prayer, and we felt it all the time. But it was just so much so fast that we were holding on for dear life, and just like, if we can get situated and we can make it through this, all will be well. And I hate to walk away. He's fussing. I need to check on him. But we knew that we were going to be okay, because we did have the love and support of everyone around us. But when you are given information and a diagnosis like we were given, and we were having to make very hard decisions very quickly, time is of the essence. This is what we need to do. This is how it needs to be. That, you just have to go. You just have to move. And so we were blessed to be in a position where we had such a strong family core on both sides of our families that were there for us, and church families praying for us, and supporting us and helping us, families helping with our other children who had activities. They had things that with school, they had things going on. Life doesn't stop when you're given an unreal diagnosis like this, or a situation comes to your doorstep. Life continues to move, and you just kind of have to pivot and make your way through it, and believe that whatever decisions you make, they'll be the right decisions. Now, granted, I'm not saying that it wasn't very stressful, and we went through lots of challenges at that time. Emotionally, it was hard. We're dealing with our young child receiving a diagnosis that we knew nothing about. We were, you grieve and mourn, for what, what this all means to life, how things may change, how it may affect the family as a whole, how things may have to be from this point forward that we weren't expecting. But, it also clarifies your values. It shows you what really matters when you're put in a situation where you realize what's the most important thing and what matters most. And then that directs the decisions that are made. And then you don't have regrets. I left my career that day, sitting in the hospital, speaking to my boss on the phone, who told me, "I'm sorry, Courtney, you know, we can't, you either have to come back to work tomorrow or you have to resign." And I was like, well, then I guess I'm going to have to resign, because if it's choosing a job or my baby, that's not even a choice for me. You know, I'm going to choose my baby.
And I like how you pointed out the multiple levels of support you have. And sometimes when we're a part of exceptional communities, just one way is not enough.
It
we
ever
need,
is.
we need that tribe. We need who do you believe in? What is your faith? Is your community, is your church community? What is your relationship like? Because in these types of in our family, you have to know him. You
Yes.
have to have a relationship because there are days when you question things, where,
Yes.
where you have questions and just honestly, sometimes it's overwhelming. It could be, but we wouldn't have it any other way because we do what we need to do for our babies. We do what we need to do for our exceptional families because this is a journey, and this journey requires many people to come and support and to help and to encourage
Yes.
and
Yes.
and and platforms like this, I love to bring people on to share their stories because for one, it's healing.
Mm-hmm.
For two, you never know who's out there watching who
Right.
needs to hear this.
Right.
Like, yes, challenges come, but we take obstacles and we turn them into opportunities for growth.
Yes.
And we
Yes.
fight and we keep
Yes.
going and we
And
advocate and we create awareness so people can know this is something that many people may not know about. And again, I just want to thank you for being transparent and coming on. And if you have to go check on baby Sam, go check on him and come back. We'll be
okay.
waiting.
Okay. I'll be right back.
Okay. And so as she's going, just to the communities out there, we have different journeys and we all handle them in different ways. Um, but one thing I do know for sure is that support is it's a necessity. And even when sometimes we close people off, it's not always the best thing to do. There are days where you just want to be all by yourself and you think you can handle everything all by yourself. But there are those days you need to pick up the phone and maybe sometimes you're just holding it. And the people that's in your community, they know, they understand. They're like, listen, what is it that you need? How can I help you? Do I need to be quiet while you scream? Do I need to come hug you? Do you need me to bring you some Starbucks? What is it that I can do to add
Yes.
value to you? And so this is why it's so important that we come together as a community to support one another. And you went to different places, but I want you to share what is a typical day.
Okay.
Just walk us through a typical day in your life.
Okay. Well, it's wild and crazy. To just to put it out there. Knowing that we have not that Samuel is our youngest child, but we have other children as well, and they're teenagers. So right now we're in that phase as well with our older kids, and they're extremely busy with activities. Um, my basic, well, my day, okay, in the life of an SMA mom or an SMA caregiver, you have to live a very structured life, because the medical care that's rendered to these children, whether they're treated with medication, now granted, they are receiving medication, and so there's a range now of children with this disease. The younger ones, the early diagnosis and early treatment children with SMA have, of course, different, their trajectory and how they go about things is different than the children Samuel's age who were in the middle, who received treatment but might not have received it as early as that, they needed to not have damage. And then the older children who are, they're pretty much, there's no movement at all generally. They're in prone position and not able to move, but maybe eyelids or slight fingertip movement, or things like that. So, but the medical care for these children, it's pretty extensive. So my day always, um, I'm up throughout the night. Samuel cannot eat by mouth, and it is imperative that he has nutrition on a regular schedule. Usually every 6 hours, he is fed. So I'm usually up at some point in time every single night, making sure that his nutrition is started. He's fed with a feed pump, and he has a G tube. So I'm up at night and I sleep, on, I may get 3 hours of sleep and then get up with him and start a feed and do that, and then go back to sleep for an hour, a couple hours, and then be up. But my day usually starts at about 5:30 in the morning. And I get up and make sure that my older son is set and ready to go so he can head to school and have a successful day. He's a freshman in high school. And then I devote religiously. I am, this is important to me, but I devote at least, I try to make an hour of my morning before Samuel wakes up for myself. And it's imperative for me. I love to work out. It's more for my mental health than my physical. Of course, I reap the physical benefits of working out regularly, but I tell everybody that hour in the morning that I spend working out is imperative for my mental the rest of the day. It sets the tone. I take moments, I do my meditations, and I say, my affirmations and my prayers, and then I do my workout in the morning. And that's before Samuel gets up, and that's after Kale goes to school. And then once I have that done, that's okay. My day, I'm ready to go. And I get myself together and I get Samuel up, and our day starts. And our day is usually filled with therapy sessions. Samuel has physical therapy, he has occupational therapy, he has speech therapy. He's learning how to work his speech device, which has been a process. We're in pre-K, homebound instruction, so we do um, our pre-K schoolwork and get that taken care of. We do our therapy sessions. And a lot of times we have multiple medical appointments. So that could be anything from a specialty appointment with our entire clinic, which generally takes 5 hours at least in a session because we see all the medical providers on one day. Or we could just have, an orthopedic appointment where we go meet with his orthopedic surgeon, and, he looks at, x-rays, and he just had two orthopedic surgeries in the past year. So he reviews how things are healing. Or we go to endocrinology and see that, doctor for another thing. But our days are full. We see multiple doctors outside of primary care doctor, outside of the dentist that we see, like everybody. We also see a full gamut of specialty physicians who keep very close eye on Samuel. And then, of course, we have appointments where he's given, every 4 months, he receives the medication that treats his disease through a lumbar puncture in his spine. So we go in for those appointments. We have to go in for lab work for those appointments and various things. So our day is full um, with therapies, with school activities, with medical appointments, things of that nature. And then, we come home, and of course, it's the daily rigors of being in the home. You deal with insurance companies on a regular basis, trying to get approvals for medical equipment, for wheelchairs, for we pretty much run an ICU out of our house. So we have tons of medical equipment in our house that needs to be serviced, or if there's an issue with it, we have to call in for technicians to come in. Samuel has his wheelchairs, he has his stander, he has various, you know, medical devices that we have to use to care for him. I have to deal with the insurance companies. I have to deal with ordering his feeding supplies. I do that regularly. Every few weeks they call and follow up on his feeding supplies because everything has to be shipped to us. He doesn't eat by mouth. All of his nutrition is a medical nutrition product. And our days are full of that. Just like today, we had OT, we had speech, we came home, we met with his Medicaid caseworker. She comes each month to meet with us for a home visit. She was here this afternoon in the midst of us, doing our other appointments. And so our days are full, from sun up to sundown. I usually tell everybody that I get up at 5:30 and I try to be in bed by 10 p.m. And it's our days are full.
Well, you said so many things, and I just want to say amazing before I say anything else. Absolutely amazing. We called this particular broadcast SMA Chronicles Strength and Stories, and when I think of strength, I think of you
Oh,
because
thank you.
I
Thank you.
definitely not only what you do for your child, and we're going to talk about advocacy a little bit because you are definitely an advocate, and I love it. And I want us to talk about that, but I want to go back to you talked about the equipment, you talked about the medical supplies. Were there any barriers for you? Because sometimes in our communities, a lot of, and not all families, but some families are not aware of how to go about getting the things that they need, getting the resources, or they get discouraged because
Oh, for sure.
the the pushback or the lack of assistance in trying to get those things, even learning about the programs that are available for families, and not to mention the income bracket. If you
Yes.
make over $2, then or you can't qualify for certain things. So it's so
Yes.
many different things to cause some of our families to just feel like, I need somebody to give me a lifeline. So can you
Yes.
share like your experience and how do you do what you do?
Okay. Well, I've thought about it is very hard because the way that things are handled, and I don't want to stand on my soapbox. Advocacy is so very important to me, and I'm very passionate about it. That is something that I really feel like God has placed on my heart with this journey. And we're going to talk about that. But what I have also really learned about myself is before I had Samuel, I was working in the healthcare arena for many, many years. I was working with physicians, I was working with hospital administrators, managers, various levels. I worked in healthcare marketing for, oh my gosh, from 2004 until I left my job to be with Samuel in 2018. So 14, 15 years total. And I went through so much in my career as it evolved over the years with my different titles. And I thought, it was so unbelievably crazy that when all of this happened with Samuel, I looked at my life and I said, you know, I've lived my life in the healthcare arena. I've been in hospital management. I've sat at the table with senior leadership for various hospitals and made really hard decisions on that team. And I'm so thankful for that time in my life because it has allowed me to feel very confident in speaking to individuals in the medical field when we've had to have difficult conversations. A lot of times it's very intimidating. And that's, I don't ever want to diminish how people feel when they're in certain environments with certain people. Being introverted or not feeling comfortable with speaking to individuals in different positions and whatnot. I never want to come across or diminish how some people feel in those environments. But me personally, based on my background, I've always felt very comfortable speaking with individuals in the medical profession and doctors and nurses and various other people because they were my peers, they were my colleagues, that's who I worked with for years before I had Samuel, and we were faced with this new life, that came along with his diagnosis. And so I remember sitting in the room when we received Samuel's diagnosis, and the neurologist at the time, he was very new in the field. He was just out of residency. He was young and he was new in the field. And it was his first diagnosis of this disease. And at the time, I did not know that. I was not told that for years. I was not told that until a few years, had passed. But he was shook with having to give us the news of Samuel's diagnosis. And he was really, really upset. I remember this plain as day, and I think about it often. And I remember sitting in the room, and Samuel was laying on the table, and Samuel's always been very loud. He might not move a lot, but he's always very vocal. And he always gets his point known and across. And at that time, he was very loud. And I remember looking over at Dr. Barton, who was the neurologist who was giving us our diagnosis. And he was extremely upset. And he was, shedding some tears, and he was very emotional. And I get it. It was a very hard day. And he told us everything, and then he said, but I want you to know, there's a medicine that Samuel can receive, and we want to get it started immediately, and trying to lift our hope up with this diagnosis. And I looked at him, and I said, I remember plain as day, and I know that this may sound like, oh my gosh, you did this, but I looked at him and I said, Dr. Barton, I'm sorry, but you got to get it. You got to pull yourself together. Like, we have things we need to do. And yes, this is a very difficult day, and this is a very difficult moment with you giving us this diagnosis. But from the way it sounds, we don't have time for this right now. What do we need to do to get the ball rolling? Let's move. Let's go. Let's make these movements. Let's get these decisions made, and let's make it happen. And he went like this. He said, you're right. You're right. This is what we need to do, and we need to do it right now. And he got himself together, and things started moving quickly. And I have always told a lot of the families that I speak with, you can take the moment, we all get this diagnosis, and it's shocking, and it's like, it's earth moving. It's like, it shakes you to your core. And you can take that moment and you can feel the grief and the hurt that your child has this devastating diagnosis and this devastating disease. And then we okay, now we got to move, because there are things that we need to do to ensure that these children's future, you know, things can be done now. There is medicine. There are 3 different medicines available to treat these children now. So please understand that the amount of hope that you have right in front of you is even so much more than our families had on our diagnosis day, and families of children older than ours had on diagnosis day. And because of medical advancements, because of the ability of families very much like ours who have driven for advocacy for what can we do to make improvements in this disease area, how can we save more children's lives, you know, things have happened, medical advancements have happened, you know, and the outlook is different now. So, you know, we have had to understand that even though life is extremely hard because of the way these children, no matter if they have been given medications early on and haven't faced, you know, loss of motor neurons, they still have, there's no cure. There is, you know, there are medical treatments available, but there's still no cure. And these children have to have rigorous medical treatment. Often they're more susceptible to different viruses. Things affect them differently than they affect other people. And so care is very important. And so it's imperative that we are always, one of the moms was talking to me the other day and she said, you know what, Courtney, this is how I see it. And I talk to moms all the time. You know, we have a mom support group that we are always talking to each other and sharing information. And one of the moms said to me, she said, you know, Courtney, she said, what I feel at times, this is how I feel. She said, you know, the saying, fight or flight. She said, you know, that feeling, fight or flight, like, oh, I got to fight, but I just want to run away. It's so this, it's hard. It's this, it's that. She goes, when I think about our life, I think it's never fight or flight. It's fight or fight,
Ah,
because every day it's fight or fight.
dang.
There's never a fight or flight. There's never, you know, oh, I'm going to fight, but you know what? I don't feel like it, so I'm just not going to today. You never have that opportunity. It's today, I'm going to fight for this. I'm going to make sure, you know, I'm going to make sure that the insurance approvals, why haven't we heard back? Why is his wheelchair not approved yet? Why haven't we received this piece of equipment? I'm going to fight that. And then tomorrow I may have to fight for, you know, we need this. Where's our medication at? Why haven't we received our medication yet? Our son needs this medication. You know, who needs to make a call? What doctor needs to put in a prior auth so that I can get a medicine that you're telling me he needs to have, and I still don't have it in hand, you know? And the next day it may be um, fighting him to get him up, to get him to therapy, because he doesn't want to get up and go to therapy, and he doesn't want to be dressed, and he doesn't want to do the work, you know? So every day.
I like that, Courtney. And if for those who are still watching, and if you are, I need you to text and put in that chat box, fight or fight,
Fight or fight.
fight
That's what.
or fight. That is so encouraging,
Yeah.
because you said this is what it is. You know, I have to. And so you really answered that question. So when barriers come and when the no's come or the door is closed, you just open it right back up until you get what you need for your child and for
Yeah.
you and your family.
Yes.
Because this is a family thing. Everybody
Yes.
part of this journey.
Everybody, we had I didn't mean to interrupt you, but early on with our older children, we had a conversation with them. When kids are younger and they fuss about, I remember when they were getting ready to go to middle school, they had to get the middle school shots, the vaccines to go to middle school. Or it was something like that, something very, oh no, I don't, we have to go get your sports physical and you got to do this and paperwork for school. And at that time, I remember looking at Kale and Raina both, and I said, a lot of times we have to do things we don't want to do. Every day, brother has to do things he doesn't want to do. And actually, every day, he has to fight to move. So we have to do hard things every day. Everyone in this family has to do hard things every day. Brother has to do hard things every day. He has no choice. He has to work hard to lift his arms up in the air. He has to work hard at that time to roll left to right. He has to work hard to get in his wheelchair and learn to push the wheels and to maneuver his wheelchair. Everyone in this family has to work hard. It doesn't matter who. And so let's not, we just, that's what we do. We work hard and we're grateful to be able to work hard, because if we could have it the other way, and the other way is not an option. We don't want the other way. We're not interested in that. So we work hard every day. And I think that it's been very good for all of us, because we look at life, like I said, it's crazy to say, but I do truly believe that you have to truly bloom where you're planted. And God said, Courtney, I've prepared you for this life because you have spent your entire educational career in health administration. You spent your whole entire career in the workforce in the healthcare field. Samuel is meant for you. He's meant for your family, because you guys are the best people to care for him. He is yours because you are prepared for this. That is what your life has been up before now. And so now this is your life, and it's going to be wonderful, and you're prepared for it, and you're ready for it, and you can handle it, because this is what I've done in your life. This is what I've been preparing you for, is the life that you're going to be living now. And that's why, for me, every day, this is what I do. And I'm very passionate about it. And I'm very driven to provide the highest level of care to my son. I've had doctors, I've had nurses, I've had medical professionals look me in the face and say, you tell us what we need to do. You tell us how we need to do it. These are people that who have devoted their life to medicine, and they're looking at me as a layperson, as a caregiver mom, and they're saying, you tell us what we need to do. And I feel confident and comfortable saying, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do.
Now, I love your example, because for those who are out there, we sometimes we think that everyone else has the answers. Everyone else can tell us, but we're with our child 365 days of the year. We know them.
I do not leave him. Do not leave him.
We know them. We know what they need. We know their moans, their groans, their uhs, their ahs, all of that. And so we know quite a bit. And we should be a part, and we should be strong and advocates on behalf of our kids. Yes. And when you don't know something, and this is for all those who are listening out there, ask. Yes. And this is why it's important to know your community, because you're not the only one that may be on this journey. Believe me, there's plenty of us on the journey, and there's always support and help out there that we can look to help us along our journey. I want to ask you another question, though, that I did not ask. Can you tell us about Samuel? What about little Samuel? Tell us, who is he? Describe us, who this wonderful, wonderful child is.
Well, he is miraculous. He really is. Samuel is probably the most strong-willed and stubborn individual, not even just child, but individual that I've ever come across in my life. He is extremely independent, which is crazy, for me to say. And I know sometimes I've had people say, well, what do you mean he's independent? You have to this, you have to that, you have to move him, you have to transfer him, you have to, no. But even though I have to do those things, or his dad has to do those things, or a grandparent has to do those things, he is still extremely independent. He wants to control when he's moved, how he's dressed, when he's dressed, he's fed. He is extremely, extremely in charge of himself and how he wants things handled. And just like, with what we're going through right now, he knows his time, his structure, his schedule. He's very aware of it. And he doesn't like it to be changed. And I mean, yes, I have, we've had to work our way through that. Of course, things do change. You have medical appointments that pop up you have to go to. You have therapy appointments you have to go to, and it might not fit what you like. And we have managed our way through that. But he's extremely driven. He's very strong. He has this speech device, that we're working with at therapy. He loves to work his technology. He works his technology, and he doesn't want anyone to help him with it at all. And his therapist, it's funny to watch them engage with each other in the session, because, his therapists want him to do certain things at certain times, and Samuel is like, no, just because you want me to do it, I'm going to do it when I want to do it. And he's always been that way. His chief neurologist has always said, Samuel he never does anything for me. And that's pretty much the truth. I mean, a lot of times when she comes in the room, he fakes sleep. He acts like he's sleeping, and he's not. Like, he's awake, because he opens his eyes up as soon as she leaves the room, But he's like, no, he's like, no, I do things in my own time when I want to do it. And for a long time, at times I used to be like, I would get frustrated, because I'd be like, he does this at home all the time. He does everything you're asking him to do with me all the time. I know that he can do it. He just is not doing it for you guys. And I would get frustrated. I'd be like, Samuel, please show him, because they need to see that you can do these things. They need to see that you can lift your arms up above your head and do all these things, and I used to get frustrated at times. But then I realized he needs to be able to have the ability to control things. For him to feel fulfillment, he has to be able to control certain things. We all need that. We all need to have the ability to be like, no, I get a say in what's going on with me. I get to say how things are making me feel, or what I want to do right now.
Right.
And because he is reliant on us for so much, because of his mobility and various other things, I've had to really allow him to have that, and to work through it with his therapist and various other people. And then he shocks them, because, like, today at speech, he was using his device, and he was finding all the stuff on the screen that he wanted to say, and that wasn't right. And he'd go back and he'd move the page. That's not right. And then he finally found what he wanted to say. And he said, I need a break. And then he has a button that says speak, and it says the whole sentence full. So he can pick words out that speak for him.
Mm-hmm.
But when he finds what he really wants to say, he knows that he needs to touch the button that says speak, and then it speaks it in a sentence form.
Mm-hmm.
And he went through the whole process, and they kept saying, is that really what you want to say? And he kept moving through it and moving through it. And finally he found, I need a break. and hit speak, and it said, "I need a break." And they said, "Oh, okay." And they gave him a break. And it's like we have to allow him to have that autonomy to be able to do things on his own in his own time, because he needs to be able to feel like he has some control in his life.
Right. And I thank you for sharing that because he is exceptional indeed.
Yes.
And I love him. He's such a cutie too. I really love him. And I know we're coming to an end, but before we end this episode of Guiding Lights, I want to talk about hope and resilience.
Mm-hmm.
What keeps you hopeful and resilient in the face of the challenges? And what can you share with those out there who are listening who may be at the beginning of this journey? This is something that's new to them. What can you give to them? What can you share? Because, like I said, there is strength in stories, and you just coming on sharing your journey, I know it helps someone. And like I said, if you can just share that with those who are out there listening, and those who may not be a part of exceptional communities,
Yes.
how can we, as all communities, be a support and also the hope and the resilience part for those who are listening?
Well, I first and foremost want to say that I truly believe that comparison is the thief of joy. And I tell parents all the time in our community and in various other rare disease communities that I speak to, because I do a lot of work with the rare disease caucus and whatnot when I go, out to Washington, D.C. and do advocacy out there. Um, that the first and most important thing to keep in mind is that you never want to compare your journey or your children or your family member who may be going through things with other individuals. Even if they have the same diagnosis or the same disease, it is imperative for us to all recognize that each and every individual is is their own special, unique person. Everyone's journeys, even if they have the same diagnosis and they're facing the same or similar challenges, everyone's journeys are different. And so to compare is only going to cause emotional a lot of stress, emotional distress, and worry and concern. A lot at times in our community have done that. Well, why are they doing this and my son is not doing this, and they're the same age and they receive the same medication and they have the same disease. And I've always said, we need to keep in mind at the forefront that are all of our children, they're all gifts from God, and they are all their own. They're all very independent, and they're their own beautiful soul on their own journey. And so it's imperative that we keep that in mind and we don't compare. That being said, it is so very much important to build relationships with other individuals in the exceptional communities like we're talking about, who can be there for you, even if it's just like you said, just, hey, I just need to vent, or I just need a moment. I need someone to understand why I feel like I'm hitting a brick wall every day and I'm not getting anywhere. And I need to be reminded by someone on the journey that even if I feel like I'm not getting anywhere, if I feel like I'm running into a brick wall, that I actually am, that I am getting somewhere. And I need to be reminded by someone who lives this life. Because what we've learned is many times, if you're not faced with these difficulties on a daily basis and you don't see them regularly, a lot of times it's out of sight, out of mind. Oh, or I hear this all the time. I had no idea. I'm not finding fault in that, because I understand in all actuality, if you aren't, if you don't need to be, dealing with certain things because you're not affected by it personally, then a lot of times, while I have no idea, I'm not affected by it personally. But that's why I try to talk about our life and our journey as much as I do, because I think that that's a bit of an excuse. Even if you're not personally affected, I'm sure you know someone who is. This is a very dynamic and diverse world. And anywhere that you turn, most likely you're going to run into somebody who either is dealing with something, or has a family member that's dealing with something. And just to be aware of that and to understand that, no, you may not have to deal with the fact that there are no handicap entrances into this gym that we can get Samuel into to watch his brother play basketball when he's in his wheelchair. Just because you don't know an individual who is facing that doesn't mean that oh, well, I have no idea, so I'm not, it doesn't bother me. You know, people need to become more aware that, there are a lot of people in this world that are facing a disability. It might not be a disability that you can see with your own eyes. It might not be something that can be understood, but many individuals are. And so we need to be more aware of that and to understand, hey, you know, let's do better as a community, as a country, as a world, to understand that even if you're not facing, difficulties, that someone may be. And so let's just do a better job of supporting and uplifting the individuals in those communities. In essence, I tell people all the time, we want to be inclusive in the way that, every individual, has the opportunity for the same things, whether they're faced with a disability or whether they're faced with a situation or not. Everyone should be allowed to have the same sort of opportunities, no matter what factors are involved. And a way that we can ensure that that happens is just continuing to bring awareness to everyone of difficulties in life and situations that we're being faced. And then that will bring along the hope. The time that I spent out in DC in October, with Cure SMA, advocating, through the House and the Senate for various, legal aid and policies and things of that nature, I left there very hopeful because I felt like I was making a difference, not just for my son and for individuals in the SMA community, but for every individual that's facing a disability, because it's our job to ensure that we continue to bring awareness to all so that everyone has the opportunity, the same opportunities, no matter what they're facing in their life. And so I felt very hopeful when I left DC at that time. And that's kind of where I want to leave it, with hope. There is so much hope. We just have to continue to do our part.
Well, I thank you so much. I thank you for sharing. I thank you for taking the time, because you didn't have to, but you did. And I know, I mean, just before her getting on the show, she was running, still
I,
running, taking care of things. And she's like, but I'm here and I'm
but
going to be there.
I mean,
And
I kind of look like a hot mess, but I'm here. I'm
but
here.
you came, and I so appreciate it. I thank you for sharing, creating awareness for exceptional communities and all communities, because it's not
Yes.
just about keeping it within our community.
Yes.
No, no,
Yes.
no. It's inclusive. We want
Yes.
everyone to know. So thank you again so
Thank you.
much. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Continue to advocate like you do. You are truly exceptional. Your
Thank
family
you.
is truly exceptional. And thank you
Well, we
again.
couldn't do it. We couldn't do it without everybody's help and love and support and prayers. I just want to say that again.
Yes, and I concur. We need one another. And again, listeners out there, thank you for joining us this evening. I did see the comments. I tried to comment back with you. I appreciate the comments, and I appreciate you tuning in today. Just remember, like and share. Be a guiding light. Like and share, because everyone needs to hear this journey. Everyone
Yes.
needs to hear, and we end it with hope, into
Yes.
resilience.
Yes.
And she is the true definition of that. So
Thank you. Thank
thank
you.
you.
Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to share our story. I really appreciate it.
Oh, anytime, anytime. And again, join us next Monday at 7 p.m. on Guiding Lights, where we will continue to create awareness, because that's what we're going to do. Thank
Thank
you
you.
again for joining us. You all have a good evening. Thank you again, Courtney.
Thank you.
And you all have a good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone.